At the age of 60, my husband Li Shoujie swallowed sleeping pills without warning. When I found out, he was wearing the Zhongshan clothes I ironed by myself, lying on the bed, with a smile on his lips. I didn't know the reason why he committed suicide for a moment, until a letter was found in his arms. 1. My wife Wani, I have fulfilled my lifelong promise to let our children walk in the world. Now that my son's career is successful and my grandson is about to be born, I have no worries about it. Life and death are separated, and true love is difficult to embrace. I can finally get rid of my unfortunate marriage. This is Li Shoujie's handwritten letter. The pen is sharp and the words are heart-wrenching. My wife in the letter is not me. True love is not me. It was me who made him unhappy. I looked at Li Shoujie, who died in bed. I have been married for more than 30 years, and I seem to have never known him. But I spent most of my life for him to raise his son with my own hands. He was complete and had no regrets. He died, but he didn't even want to pretend to me. At the age of 60, I found myself deceived for half my life. It's a joke. 2. In fact, I should have realized it long ago. Unloved details are everywhere in the wedding. Li Shoujie slept in a separate room with me, and separated the dishes and chopsticks on the grounds that he was obsessed with cleanliness. Except for talking about my son, he won't care about me, and won't share his daily life with me. Later, there was a problem in that aspect, and there was no more married life. But I dare not have any complaints. Because of my uterine deformity and infertility, Li Shoujie can't have his own children. In that era, a woman like me who couldn't give birth to a child was beaten and scolded, cheated and divorced, which was all taken for granted. When I was in my 20s and thought my life was over, it was Li Shoujie who firmly held my hand and told me that it was okay. At worst, adopt one. I am grateful to him for not leaving me and trying my best to take care of him and his adopted son. He is engaged in chemistry research and is often transferred at work. For this reason, I gave up the newspaper's golden job and did housework for him. When he was depressed, I only gnawed on the nest and gave vegetables and meat to their father and son. And I didn't buy a new dress for 3 years. So much so that they still think that I like coarse grains, don't like meat, like to wear soft old clothes, and like to study the style of patches. Sometimes I also feel wronged, but when I think of the debt to Li Shoujie, I can only sigh silently. I always have expectations in my heart. I think that when I am old, I can also raise the case with my eyebrows and my children around my knees. But it was hard to survive until this day. But what was waiting for was Li Shoujie's relief. I want to cry loudly and curse loudly. But half a life is so heavy that I can't breathe that I fell to the ground, like a drowning fish, opening my mouth, but I couldn't say a syllable. 3. I don't know how long it took, but the light and shadow outside the window changed and a tear hit my hand. I suddenly come to my senses. He glanced at the old wooden box with a lock under Li Shoujie's bed. That's the privacy he didn't allow me to violate. And now, I found a fire axe and did not hesitate to break his privacy. There are thick piles of letters written by hand in the box. Some are old and yellow, and some seem to be repeatedly rubbed over the rolled edge. Knowing that these letters would turn into sharp blades, they stabbed me with a knife. I still shook my hands and stubbornly opened the envelope one by one. My wife Wani, next month is my wedding date. In order not to have other children after marriage, I went to have ligation surgery today. I will only have one child in my life. My wife Wani, forgive me for having sex with another woman. In fact, I was also very disgusted and almost didn't get hard. I repeatedly told myself that it was all for the sake of thinking, and I had to bear the burden of humiliation. My wife Wani, I'm really tired of Lu Jitsue. Fortunately, I came up with a good idea. I told her that I had a cleanliness fetish. I slept with her in separate rooms and separated dishes and chopsticks. Only in this way could I endure it. My wife Wani has been married for a year, and Lu Jitsue can't get pregnant. I asked someone to prove her infertility. She was ashamed. I thought I could adopt a child with her after a while. My wife Wani, I have good news for you. My son has been picked up smoothly. My wife Wani, today I hurt myself. I smashed my lower body to protect your virginity. My wife Wani. My wife Wani. These four surround my mind and ears, and they linger. I only felt dizzy and tinnitus. A breath was held in my lungs, and then sank into my stomach, and my stomach spasmed. Finally, he rushed to the toilet and vomited wildly. 4. I vomited so dark. I held the toilet 3 times before I successfully stood up. When I came out of the bathroom, I saw this house that I had lived in for more than 30 years. My bedroom with Li Shoujie is separated by a whole living room, which is distinct. On the table that I didn't have time to clean up, the tableware of the family has different styles, and the well water does not violate the river water. Because Li Shoujie said that he had a cleanliness fetish, his son learned from each other after being sensible. Gradually, everything was allocated to our family, even the sofa. No one touches anyone. Once, I was so tired that I sat on the sofa that belonged to Li Shoujie. Li Shoujie was so angry that he didn't eat. Later, I coaxed him for a long time, took off the sofa cover and washed it, and then coaxed him. Even today, when I found out that Li Shoujie was dead, I stood at the door of the room for 5 minutes. No matter how much I called him, I couldn't wake him up, so I had to break in. Unconsciously, I almost became the most bounded nanny in the family. Just then my mobile phone rang. The daughter-in-law's painful voice came. "Mom, I asked you to go home to get a milk heater. Why did you go for so long?" I'm about to enter the delivery room. Li Si still has to answer the company's conference call. "I need you to take care of me." I was a little distressed when I heard her in pain. After opening my mouth several times, I made a hoarse voice. "Mom, I'll be back soon. Wait, don't be afraid." After hanging up the phone, my chaotic mind became much clearer. I told myself that I was still a mother and mother-in-law. Today is the daughter-in-law's birthday, which is the top priority. How can the evil fate of the older generation affect the children? Even if the adopted son is Li Shoujie's illegitimate son, it is not his fault. How could he know that his father was such a decent person? He is the son I raised with all my best. He is my son. Li Shoujie, since you are going to fall in love, take your secret with that woman to the grave. I wiped my tears and went into Li Shoujie's room to clean up his letters, suicide notes and sleeping pills to remove the traces of his suicide. When my son comes home and finds him again, it's good to think that he died suddenly. But just as I packed up the drawer, I found Li Shoujie's mobile phone. I opened it because I was afraid that he would leave a trace, but I saw that there was a timed email on it. The recipient is his son. 5. In an instant, an extremely bad premonition enveloped me. I still trembled and opened this email. "My son C. When you received this email, Dad was already dead. Forgive my father's selfishness, and forgive me that I really can't stand your stepmother. You don't have to feel sorry for me. For me, I have fulfilled my promise to your mother in this life, and it is very complete." I read this cold line and disbelievably, the picture in front of me trembled. The fingers became stiff, and it was even difficult to slide the screen. It turns out that Li Si knows everything. He and his father and biological mother are a family. Then what am I? What is my half-life education? I sat on the ground and turned back without dying. Unexpectedly, the following content really made me feel like falling into an ice cave. Now that you are happy and have a successful career, Dad has nothing to help you. The only way is to leave everything to you to avoid the burden of supporting the elderly. I have also arranged the stepmother you hate. I added a newly developed biological poison to her insulin, which is chronic. When it came to work, the daughter-in-law happened to be in term. She will make the last contribution before she dies. At that time, the death insurance I bought for her will also take effect, and the beneficiary is you. Lu Jitsue has no relatives for no reason, and no one will find out the cause of her death. Even if I investigate, the murderer will only be me. I will leave with a stigma and give you a consummate. Finally, remember to bury the letter in the box locked under my bed with me and your mother. 6. On a hot summer day, the cool air rose from the soles of my feet, freezing my whole body in place. It's like a vacuum in my ear, and I can't hear anything. I suddenly remembered that every year on Li Si's birthday, the father and son did not see each other all morning. I remember that Li Si was disciplined by me and ran away from home when she was a child. She cried and shouted to find her mother. I braved the heavy rain to find him all night. I remember that my daughter-in-law bought a bouquet of white chrysanthemums one day, but she couldn't tell who it was for. The past rotates in my mind like a walking horse lamp. I was confused, but I had never been as sober as I was at this moment. After a long time, I controlled my cold body. He quietly found his medicine box, took away the insulin that had passed his hands and feet, and changed another box to cover people's ears and eyes. I took a picture of Li Shoujie's suicide note, letter and text message, and put it back in place. I took away the property certificate, the gloss and all the jewelry. Finally, I even saw Li Shoujie's weak breathing clearly. He is not dead yet. I sneered. He gently closed his door and let him die. 7. I came to the hospital like a walking dead with sin and wealth. Hang the hematology department first. The blood test results came out very quickly. There was mild poisoning, which led to a decrease in platelet content, but it did not lead to death. Then I went to the gynecology department to check my uterine problems. As soon as I got out of the examination, I bumped into Li Si head-on. He seemed to be making a work call all the way from the gynecology department. When he saw me, his irritable expression reached its peak, but he pointed at me with his finger, pointed to the delivery room, and kept urging me with his chin. It turns out that you can really see a lot of things clearly after waking up. In the past, looking at his busy appearance in a suit and leather shoes, I was proud of him, and I also felt sorry and considerate of him from the bottom of my heart. I was afraid that I would drag the child's back leg, so I willingly paid for him. But now, looking at his posture of ordering his mother, I think of the things he hid from me, and think of Li Shoujie telling him that he was going to poison me like a daily life. I just feel cold in my heart. I ignored him and sat on the bench, waiting for my inspection report. Li Si's expression was like swallowing a fly. He quickly ended the phone call, walked quickly to me, and pushed me unceremoniously. Mom, what's wrong with you? Today your daughter-in-law gave birth to a baby. You are not waiting in the delivery room. What are you doing in the gynecology department? 8. I patted the place he touched in disgust. Of course, it's a physical examination. Li Si rolled her eyes directly. Mom, stop it. You are almost 60 years old. Why are you still in the gynecology department? Can't you come to the gynecology department at the age of 60? Are you not a woman at the age of 60? You heard that your mother came for a checkup, but you didn't ask her if she was sick. I was depressed in my heart. When I said the back, my voice was crying. I remember that when Li Si was 8 years old, she had pneumonia and a high fever that did not go down. In order to take care of him, I didn't take off my clothes and didn't sleep for half a month. I also missed the last meeting before my father's death. Later, Li Si got better, and I wanted to go back to attend my father's funeral. But Li Shoujie left his son to himself on the grounds that he could not leave his work. I want to take Li Si back to the funeral. Li Si is so delicate that she can't stand the bumps of the train, that in the end, I didn't leave the province and came back. My brother was so angry that he broke off relations with me, an unfilial daughter. He scolded me for being a white-eyed wolf, saying that I didn't care about my relatives and would be retribution sooner or later to raise other people's sons. My brother said it. Thinking about the past, I directly shouted at Li Si. Did I have the attitude of you when you were sick when you were a child? My volume is not small. Other people in the hospital cast disgusted glances at us. Li Si has always paid attention to face. She coughed and softened her tone. Mom, you know I don't mean that. It's not that your daughter-in-law is going to give birth. Am I anxious? How can I be separated from you at home? Can't leave me? Yes. You really can't live without me when you need your mother. After all, Li Shoujie wants to do academics. Li Si wants to do business. And his family is traveling to the Maldives. I'm always the only one who serves people. But what about after that? I'm not even qualified to live. I can't drag my son down. And I have to exchange my life for insurance money for my son. My heart was so sour that I bowed my head, and a tear fell on my knee. The son was stunned, and was about to ask something when the mobile phone rang again. Obviously, it's not work this time, because when Li Si looks at her mobile phone, she is as dumb as a chicken. Counting the time, Li Shoujie's regular text message should arrive. 9. Li Shoujie has arranged everything. If my daughter-in-law hadn't let me go home temporarily, I would have been in the hospital at the moment, and my son would have gone back to dispose of his body. I will know nothing about his conspiracy. Unfortunately, God has eyes and let me see. Li Si was fixed in place, and did not move for a long time. For a long time, he seemed to have digested his emotions and said dodgefully, Mom, I have an important document left at home. I have to go back and get it quickly. With Li Si's words, the last hope in my heart was shattered. Just now, for a moment, I really hoped that the child I raised with my mother's love could stand on my side once. Even if you don't tell me the truth, you just feel a trace of resentment towards his father's behavior? But he didn't. He is a complete white-eyed wolf. Mom, hurry up and go to the delivery room. My daughter-in-law can't live without people now. Li Si had something on her mind, and urged me to turn around and leave. At this time his phone rang again. The daughter-in-law's voice came from the receiver. Husband, I asked my mother to go home and help me get things, but she didn't come back for a long time. I can't get through the phone now. Do you know where she is? The daughter-in-law was painful and aggrieved. I gave birth to a baby for your old Li family, but you didn't have 1, 2 or 3 of you, so I won't have this child. In the past, at this time, the son must have been a little wife, but at this moment, he is frozen in place like a sculpture. He turned around mechanically and asked me tremblingly, Mom, did you just go home? What answered my son was my blood-red eyes. Li Si's face turned pale, hung up the phone directly and staggered away. 10. I sat in the gynecology department for 2 hours. I finally got my physical examination report. Everything in the uterus is normal. I was holding the report, and my mind was full of the white eyes and harsh treatment I suffered when I was young, because I couldn't give birth. It was the happy expression of my friends when they gave birth to a baby. I also remembered that the neighbor's little cotton jacket always spends money to buy her big-name clothes and bags. But my adopted son brought his mother-in-law's old clothes to me. He still thinks that I like to wear old clothes. But he is in his 30s, and an exquisite business elite. Don't you really know that no one likes old clothes? He just doesn't care about me. I was immersed in grief, and didn't notice that Li Si came over anxiously. He asked tentatively, Mom, Why don't you answer the phone all the time? Do you know that Dad committed suicide? Why don't you save him? I just want to sneer at this series of words, I said coldly. How could I know that he won't let me into his room? Li Si was choked. But obviously I was relieved. I didn't enter the room, so naturally I couldn't see Li Shoujie's letter, let alone his conspiracy. So he returned to his usual questioning tone. So what's wrong with you today? Your daughter-in-law doesn't care about giving birth to a child, and my father doesn't care about suicide. You don't care about anything. Are you really my mother? Oh, I'm really not his mother. I asked him back. Are you really my son? You only care about your daughter-in-law and your father. Have you asked me a question? Am I your mother or your nanny? I stared at Li Si. I'm in menopause and I can't have a baby. The white-eyed wolf in front of me is my only son. The only son, who was raised with all his life. Perhaps guilty, Li Si was choked again. But for a moment he was furious. Mom, have you made enough trouble? When is this? Even if you have any minor diseases and disasters, can you go a little later? 11. I looked at Li Si almost in shock. How did he talk to me so righteously? When did the child I raised by myself become rotten? Li Si was still chattering. Mom, you should reflect on yourself. You don't know why your husband committed suicide. Have you really cared about your husband? Didn't you care about it? I have cared about it. But Li Shoujie drew a line between me. He will be angry when I enter his territory. He will be angry if I use his things. And he will be impatient if I care about his things. Even when he was sick, it was wrong for me to say more greetings. Later, I was gradually domesticated by him. I learned to shut up, just do it without saying anything, and give silently. After decades, all this has become a matter of course. I said coldly. I don't know why your father committed suicide, do you know? Li Si scratched her hair and said, Mom, this should be what you care about. Everyone has a profession in this society, and your profession is a housewife. Now is not the time to guess. You know that my father hates you the most. Take good care of my father now. When he wakes up, you apologize and he will forgive you. I said coldly. I feel a little disappointed in my heart. Li Shoujie didn't die. It seems that Li Si saved him back. Their family's love is as deep as the sea. Martyrdom of martyrdom, life-saving, life-saving. I'm the only one who is a damn outsider. At this time, Li Si's eyes fell on my inspection report. He took it away. 60-year-old partner sacrificed for his first love 39,103. Snort, I want to see what you have. 12. After reading the content of the report clearly, Li Si finally realized with Hindo. His face turned green, and he was still trying to control his expression. Mom, aren't you infertile? Is this report wrong? After all, he is nervous, which is exposed. I have never told him that I am infertile, and I have always told him that he is my biological child. I looked at Li Si and asked him, I'm infertile. How do you know? Maybe my father told me. I once asked him why he didn't have a younger brother or sister. He said nonsense for the good face. Later I realized that it was his problem. Li Si's acting skills are very poor, and her words are contradictory. In fact, in Retal, Li Shoujie's acting skills are not good either. Just because I believed him, I was blinded by a leaf, and my whole life was lost. When Li Si hesitated, his phone rang again and again, which saved him. Li Shoujie woke up. Li Si was really happy. She grabbed my shoulder with her big hand, and urged me to take care of Li Shoujie. I was caught so painfully by him, that I threw him away with a cold face. Li Si's face also darkened and persuaded me patiently. Mom, I know you are thinking nonsense now, but even if my father is sorry for you, it's a thing of the past. You are old, so don't toss around. Yes, he is right. I'm already at old age. I won't toss around, I can only cut the mess with a quick knife. Li Si saw that I didn't eat soft food and came hard food. The tone of speech was a warning. Mom, I advise you to be pretentious and distinguish between occasions. You will point at my father to support you in the future. You don't show up at this time. If my father is angry and divorces you, I have nothing to say. After saying this, Li Si left angrily. 13. It happened all afternoon, and I also calmed down. I am indeed 60 years old, but I don't have anything. I have half of the property that Li Shoujie wants to leave to his son. I took out my family property and Li Shoujie's private property. I connected my nephew's phone. Li Shoujie didn't know that my nephew and I had been in touch. Although my brother and I broke off our relationship, I still pay attention to the movements of their family. But that year, my brother injured his leg, and his family had no money to study for him. I sold the dowry jewelry and gave him enough tuition. And the university my nephew was admitted to is in my city. In the 4 years of college, I went to help other people's houses cook and make money to help my nephew without Li Shoujie's knowledge. My nephew is a person who knows kindness and greets me on New Year's holidays. It's just that Li Shoujie doesn't like people coming from home, so I've only seen him outside a few times. Now my nephew is already a big lawyer. I called him and told him everything in full. My nephew was silent for a long time. He gritted his teeth and said, "Auntie, don't worry. I will help you fight for property and send these wicked people to prison." Listening to the heartache in my nephew's words, I shed tears silently, received naked care. Only then did I clearly realize that the kind of sporadic care that only exists in words, that requires my continuous efforts. How sad it is. After all, I alienated my true relatives for the sake of the dirty father and son, my blood-related relatives. My nephew did what he said, and showed up in the hospital an hour later. He first took me to the Judicial Appraisal Center, and submitted the poisoned insulin to the appraisal. Then he took me to the notary office to fair the marital property. After a busy afternoon, my nephew took me to dinner, and wanted to take me back to his house. That I said I wanted to go home. My nephew advised me, "Auntie, don't go back. Your home is Longton Tiger's Cave. What if Li Shoujie wants to harm you again?" I shook my head. I want to confirm one last thing. 14. As a mother, I actually have a little fantasy about Li Si. If he still has a trace of my mother in his heart, and quietly changes the poisonous insulin, I will open my face to him. After all, he was raised by me. My nephew had no choice but to accompany me. When I arrived at the door of the house, there seemed to be a voice coming from inside. My nephew quickly stopped me, and motioned me to shut up. I listened to him lying on the door. Li Shoujie is back unexpectedly. The father and son are talking. Li Shoujie was very weak, and was very angry when he spoke. I just said that my suicide note had been touched. You don't believe it. Now you see, even the box under the bed has been pried. Lu Jitsue just came into my room. My suicide note is fine, but there are too many things written in the letter in the box. Lu Jitsue knows too much. Li Si said anxiously, "You too. Why do you write everything in the suicide note? It's an era, and you still write letters by hand every day." Li Shoujie coughed several times. "Can you, a bitch, understand the relationship between me and your mother? If I didn't only love your mother all my life, could you have today? Besides, your daughter-in-law gave birth to a child, and Lu Jitsue should be in the hospital. How do I know that your daughter-in-law asked her to come back?" Li Si's voice weakened. "This is indeed an accident. But Dad, isn't it because you want to be martyred without telling me? You only think about my mother. Have you ever thought of me?" Speaking of this, Li Si's voice was crying, and Li Shoujie also choked up. It seems that they are the victims. I was so disgusted when I heard it. Thanks to my nephew's soothing pat on my back, I calmed down. When the father and son finally finished crying, Li Shoujie suddenly asked Li Si, "Have you destroyed the poisoned insulin?" When I heard this sentence, my heart also followed it. 15. Li Si was not happy. "Dad, you arranged the insulin thing so well. Why did you destroy it? You sent me an email, and Lu Jitsue won't know. Just let her continue to inject the insulin. As long as she dies, the compensation can be spent by our father and son together. She has occupied my mother's position for so many years, and it's time to pay the price." Listening to Li Si's poisonous words, I only felt cold all over my body. How can the son of a beast be a person? I am completely dead to this father and son. Inside the door, Li Shoujie was silent for a while and said, "You're right. Lu Jitsue is just a housewife, and I look up to her too much. She has been curious about what's in my box for a long time. What can she do when she sees it now? I just lied to her, and let her eat and drink for the rest of her life. Even if she regrets it, can she still go back in time? Now she can't live at all when she leaves me. It's nothing more than losing her temper. It will be fine when she understands and accepts her fate." Li Si was still a little worried. "But Dad, I think Lu Jitsue's attitude is a little different this time. How dare she ignore your life or death, and my daughter-in-law? Dad, we both have a head and a face, so we can't let her make a fuss." Li Shoujie snorted confidently. "It's nothing. I know Lu Jitsue. She loves me so much. It's not her compromise. She apologizes. I just need to wait. Even if it's more serious this time, she feels that she can't get over it, which is nothing more than jealousy. I pretended to commit suicide for her again, and she was balanced. He will continue to treat us as cattle and horses." Li Si's tone was admiring. "Dad, I have to say that you are really awesome. You are a model for a man." Li Shoujie snorted. "I know you don't believe me, but don't worry. I must have a backhand in such a big matter." Li Shoujie's voice was murderous. "First, use the trick of delaying the army. In case Lu Jitsue has second thoughts, I will kill her again." When Li Si heard the murder, instead of hesitating, he clapped his hands happily. 16. After listening to the conversation between father and son, I was almost frozen in place. It was my nephew who helped me leave, until he got into the car. His nephew was secretly wiping his tears. I also wiped my tears. My aunt is incompetent, and doesn't care much about him at ordinary times. Now I not only bother him, but also make him sad. When I cried enough, my nephew brought me back to his house. He didn't get married. But the house was very clean, and the largest room was prepared for his brother in advance. Now he settles me in this room. As soon as he got home, he began to prepare for the prosecution process. In the next few days, my nephew asked the company for leave, and focused on running around with me. During this period, the father and son called me countless times, but I didn't answer any of them. Li Si also sent a photo of his newborn son, trying to soften my heart. But this child has no blood relationship with me at all. What kind-hearted do I have? I deleted the photo casually. A few days later, Li Si borrowed a mobile phone to call me. I thought it was a call from the court, so I answered it without thinking about it. As a result, Li Si performed wildly at that end. Mom, where on earth are you? Can you stop making trouble? Do you know that Dad committed suicide for you? It's really dangerous this time. He's in serious condition. Dad left a letter by hand, saying that he knew he was wrong. Only when he lost you did he know that he loved you the most. As long as you go home, he will never think about the past anymore. Our family is living a good life. His voice was so loud that I thought it was noisy, so I took the receiver away. There was no nutritious content in the end. I said, "Oh, Li Si obviously didn't expect me to be so cold." She was stunned and squeezed out a trace of tears. "Mom, my father has something to tell you in person." He hung up the phone and made a video call. I took it this time. I'm not moved. I just want to see how their father and son will act. 17. In the video, Li Shoujie is lying on the hospital bed with a tube inserted. When a pair of cloudy old eyes looked at me, they were full of deep affection. He faintly recalled our past. "Ji Chui, in fact, I fell in love with you when you first came to our unit for an interview. It's just that I was always thinking about the dead person at that time, and I couldn't think of it for a moment. Later, I also stubbornly thought. Alas, I won't say it. Unexpectedly, I lived for most of my life, but I didn't understand it. I remember what I have done, and I can't wait to kill myself. Ji Chui, I didn't understand until I died once. I really can't live without you. Come back quickly." Li Shoujie performed with emotion, and an old tear flowed down. And I have no other feeling except goosebumps. He said to himself that he hasn't watched a bloody drama for 10 years, so he can't say such a scalp-singling word. At the age of 60, he still talks about love. This old man doesn't understand at all. I want to say something, but my nephew told me not to be alarmed before the official prosecution. I kept my mouth shut and watched his performance. When Li Shoujie finished all the lines he could say, he found that I didn't want to waver at all. The old man's cloudy eyes turned and suddenly approached the screen. He asked me sinisterly, "Ji Chui, where are you now? I want to see you for the last time." The murderous intent that flashed in Li Shoujie's eyes was clearly transmitted through the screen. I was shocked and hung up the phone quickly. At night I had a nightmare. I dreamed that Li Shoujie and Li Si surrounded me with knives and stabbed me viciously one by one, until I woke up the next day. My mental state was very bad. I went downstairs to buy vegetables, but I was caught by the police as soon as I went out. 18. I thought the police comrades came to help me, until they stood me up left and right. I asked in a panic, "Comrade, why did you arrest me?" The policeman explained, "Auntie, don't panic. You don't know that you have Alzheimer's disease. We received a report from your husband and son, saying that you were deceived and ran away with all the family's property. It also took us a lot of effort to find you. Don't worry, we will take you to your family." I quickly explained, "I'm not sick. I came out by myself, and I want a divorce. Auntie, people who are sick don't realize that they are sick. Your son has submitted your diagnosis report, and you do have Alzheimer's disease." Okay, it's the diagnostic report again. Li Shoujie and Li Si are repeated in their old skills. Isn't it enough for me to get sick? I madly explained that I really didn't get sick, but the police obviously believed the diagnosis report more. He pointed to the nephew who was escorted down. "This person is the one who cheated your money, and your family won't hurt you." Watching my nephew being handcuffed by the police, I was angry and struggled crazily. It attracted many passers-by to watch. Some enthusiastic people have muttered, "It won't be a violent law enforcement. Take out your mobile phone and start taking pictures." The police had to come forward to explain. When my nephew was free, he came to me and comforted me. "Auntie, don't worry. Are you sick or not? You will know when you get to the police station. The police will return our justice. They must have other purposes for telling such a lie that is easy to be exposed, and we still need to stand by." I calmed down and felt that what my nephew said was reasonable and cooperated with the police. Sure enough, half a day later, my nephew proved his lawyer status and his kinship with me. I also cooperated to prove that my mental state was normal. We reported the case by the way and officially accused Li Shoujie and his son of attempted murder. 19. When I came out of the police station, I was relieved and finally felt relieved. Next, as long as he and his nephew went to the appraisal agency to get evidence, Li Shoujie and his son were in trouble. But I never thought that as soon as I got out of the police station, a figure rushed towards me. When I realized, Li Shoujie's ferocious old face was already close at hand. He is still holding a syringe in his hand. When I thought I was about to finish, a policeman rushed out, kicked Li Shoujie directly to the ground. This old gangster committed suicide twice before, and now he can't toss anymore. He stared at me with vicious eyes and cursed, "Li Shoujie, you can't die. You harm your husband and children with outsiders. And you can do anything to the children you raised with your own hands. You don't deserve it." His shameless speech made the policemen present couldn't help rolling their eyes that I wanted to scold him. But I didn't know where to start. It's a waste of words to say one more word to this kind of beast. The nephew picked up the syringe on the ground and handed it to the police. He said angrily, "Comrade policeman, I just said that this old man had no good intentions and rushed to the door of the police station to commit a murder. The poison in this needle is mostly the same as the poison in the insulin he gave to my client. This person is stolen and punished for several crimes." The public security acted quickly and soon collected Li Shoujie's criminal evidence chain completely. However, because Li Shoujie was sure that his son did not know about it, Li Si did not participate in the actual crime. In the end, only Li Shoujie was arrested. Half a month later, Li Shoujie's attempted murder case was tried together with my divorce case. Before the court, Li Si also appeared as a witness. He stopped me in the corridor and told me a lot about his childhood, trying to awaken my maternal love. Let me share less of my property and leave more for him. He wants to raise a child, but I only think it's ridiculous. What is not what I'm paying for him? What did he do for me? Give me the coarse grain, or give me the old clothes. Don't think about it. I won't give you a penny. I pushed him away and walked in, but he broke his defense, rushing to me and roaring, "You don't do anything in your life. Why do you want to divide my father's so much property? Just rely on you as a babysitter. You haven't thought about how to live in the second half of your life when you are 60? If you don't have a son to take care of you, do you expect your nephew to take care of you?" 20. To this day, looking at Li Si's teeth and claws, I will no longer be sad. I just want to sneer. What's wrong with 60? It's not too late to turn around at 60. Because the evidence is complete, there is no suspense in Li Shoujie's judgment. Forgery of medical certificates, attempted murder, malicious insurance fraud. Several crimes were punished and sentenced to 30 years. I'm going to die in prison. The judge approved my divorce application in court, because Li Shoujie was at fault and most of the property was awarded to me. After the court, Li Si chased me and scolded me for a street. It's nothing more than that I stole the money that belonged to him. I was not polite to him. I listened to my nephew and posted what he did on the internet. Li Si soon lost her reputation, lost her job, and her wife ran away with her son. And I have been sympathized by a large wave of netizens. They were righteous and indignant, saying that it was just an old lady. You won yuan and I won yuan. To make a full pension for the old lady. I refused their kindness. My property was enough for me to donate to people in need. But after this time, I also felt the kindness of strangers, that it is much warmer than my cold family. I opened my live broadcast account to share my daily retirement life, which was quite well received. Next, I plan to start the special topic of RV travel. It's not too late for a career at the age of 60. Before leaving for the trip, I went to the prison to see Li Shoujie. I told him that in fact, I had heard of the old man's first love and doubted Li Si's origin. There would be no paternity test at that time. I specially checked my blood type. Li Shoujie is O-type and Li Si is AB type. They can never be a father-son relationship. He is the one who has been deceived all his life. Li Shoujie's gray lips trembled for a long time. When he got up, he suddenly spit out a mouthful of old blood. He said, Wani, you lied to me so hard. I didn't look back. When I walked out of the prison, I looked at the sunshine above my head and smiled. I lied to you. It seems that compared with the lover who has been in love for 3 lifetimes, he believes in me more. A fool who devotes his life. Leaving people is that as long as others believe you, no matter how outrageous lies they are, they can be believed. Li Shoujie, this is what you owe me.